everyday witches emerge from the shadows of secrecy. Broom closets are flinging open and witches are taking flight. Whether you are hiding in your cozy closet or flying with pride, stay for a spell as Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon and her guests share magical moments, stir the cauldron, and debunk misinformation and misconceptions about paganism, witches, and our wonderful world of magic.
Hello, everyone. I have another special guest, and her name is Heather. She is a spiritual gifts mentor. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get into this conversation with you.
I am too, and I would love to know what a spiritual gifts mentor is.
Oh my goodness. I love the spiritual gifts mentor because what it is that when I opened up to my abilities, I realized I was so incredibly passionate about helping others tap into their abilities because I didn't know I always had gifts. And so I really wanted to show other people how to do it. And when I was looking around and I was learning about coaches and mentors, I was like, a difference between a coach and a mentor is a mentor has actually been down the road that they teach and they show others. And I'm like, that is me. I am never going to teach on something, or I'm never going to show anybody the way unless I have been through it myself. And so that's where the mentor part comes up. And then with the spiritual gifts, that is where, you might be open to psychic and mediumship. You might be a great intuitive. You might be a great energy reader. You might be a great healer. And so these are all things that I have experience in and have taken classes and courses and certified in many of those areas. And so that's why I call myself a spiritual gifts mentor.
I like that because there's so many coaches out there. And that doesn't mean that they actually have experienced what they're coaching.
Yes. And I remember even with my mentor, she would teach on things. And even though I love her and still love her to this day, it was like she could only go so far with teaching certain things like mediumship gallery readings, and that is where you get up in front of everyone and you connect to spirits on the other side, in front of people. It's also called platform mediumship. But it's like she's never done that before. So how can she really teach and show us the ins and outs and what to expect? If you haven't done it yourself. So I remember in the beginning of my spiritual journey and opening up, going ahead and not only just taking classes, but trying out all these different things like the mediumship gallery readings and stuff like that, because it's like, I want to be able to tell people what it's like. And then also it was learning about myself and if I liked doing those kinds of things or not.
So you have to walk the talk.
That's exactly. I am 100% all about that. And that's seriously what I teach with my community and everything like that. It's like, I'm never going to tell you anything that I haven't done. And I think it gives you authenticity because it's like, if I am telling everybody that spiritual gifts is something that everybody has, it's something that we are all innately born with, then like, you will trust me, you will know that this is absolutely true. Like if I can open up to my spiritual gifts, then other people can as well.
Have you been wanting to ride your broom like you stole it, rather than hiding in the shadows? Theodora Pendragon is here to help your magic shine, whether you want to show the world your subtle sparkle, or you really want to light your fire. Visit Theodora's online store at witchcasting.shop. That's witchcasting.shop. Remember, there's never been a better time to be a witch.
Tell us how this all started for you.
Okay.
Of course, from the beginning. I know that.
Yes. So it was this cold day in 1983. It's so funny because other people that I've noticed in the industry too, they've had these gifts their whole life. And, I read tons and tons of stories and about how, I seen my grandmother after they died, and I used to have these premonitions and I used to have these dreams. And I remember reading these books just being so incredibly jealous. Like, why do some people get this gift and other people don't. And that's when I realized that when I was about 28 years old, I started getting really sick. I turned to spirituality, when doctors had no other reasons of why I was getting sick. And then that's when I started meditating. I started like changing my diet. I started going down the spiritual path. And then all of a sudden, that's when I realized that I had gifts and I was suppressing them. And that's what was making me sick. And so even though I really didn't have any experiences growing up or anything like that, I think that maybe I was suppressing them, because then all of a sudden, once I started learning how to use them, which is a whole entire journey in itself, but my day job, they ended up sending me to Virginia for work. And because I didn't have, my husband and my son around, and I was just kind of by myself for work, I got to explore my spiritual side, because it's like, we've all been there, right? I think everybody has, where it's like, ooh, do I want to get a reading? Oh, am I scared? Ooh, what's up with tarot cards? That's just so taboo. And that was me. And with nobody around to judge me and stuff like that, and being able to be free on my week, I went ahead and I went to fairs, and that's when I started learning about it. And then I found a development circle, and then I learned how to connect. And then as soon as I learned how to connect, I was like, I gotta tell the masses. If I can do this, everyone can do it.
And it all started with meditating.
It really did, yes. Even though I'm not a really big meditator, what meditation did is that it helped me create space between my thoughts so that spirit could get a word in edgewise. We can't hear our spirit guides, our past loved ones, and our angels because our minds are so busy all the time. We're always wondering about what's going to happen. We're stressing about this. And then on top of that, too, we always have podcasts in our ears, even though I love podcasts, but we're always listening to music. We're always like either watching TV, have the TV on. And so our brain is completely overloaded. But when we meditate, we allow some silence to come into our life. And then that's when we can start thinking sometimes like, wait, where did this thought just come from? That wasn't me. How did I come up with that idea? And that's what happened in my meditation. I actually started seeing like colors, and then I would Google what the colors meant. And then I remember coming home and telling my husband, be like, oh my gosh, I started meditating and I saw this purple color. And when I looked it up, it talks about like the, crown chakra or whatever it is, and this is what it means. And he's like, no way. And I actually started meditating with the monks. So there is monasteries all around, even here in Metro Detroit. There's quite a few of them. There's probably like 3 of them within 15 minutes of my house. And so don't discount where you're living, because you might have a monastery near you. And the monks gave me a sacred and safe space to be able to meditate, because I was too scared to even meditate.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. We just ended up driving by, and you see some monasteries sometimes. You might see like the Buddha outside and everything. And we stopped by they were celebrating the Buddhist New Year. And so I started talking with people there and started talking with some of the monks and everything. And they're like, hey, we do a public, meditation. Everybody's welcome to come, once in the morning and once at night. So I became kind of a regular going there at night. And that's when the colors started happening. And I would try not to like have the colors come up, but they would. And then all of a sudden I started being able to feel safe enough to practice at home. And that's all of a sudden things started coming to me. And it was so funny because my husband has been like the skeptic or on the fence. And then when I would get out of meditation, I would tell him things. I'd be like, oh, you need to go to the doctors because you need this, because this is wrong with you. He'd be like, how do you know this? And I'd be like, I was just talking to myself, and myself told me during meditation.
Meditation was your gateway.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were meditating and you'd get these colors, you'd get these visions, whatever came to you, how did you distinguish between these genuine psychic experiences or a mere coincidence or wishful thinking or just a daydream? We can have daydreams, but it doesn't mean that it's any form of divination, fortune telling.
Yes. And I absolutely love that question, because I think that is like the number one struggle that everybody has, even with their intuition and with their gifts. For me, when I came out of those meditations, it was like this knowing, like I just knew it. So that's kind of like, if you ever hear of psychic clairs, psychic abilities and stuff like that, they talk about clairvoyance, you might have heard, which is clear seeing, but mine was clear cognizance, which is clear knowing. Like I just knew it. It's like, I just know that if you go ahead and do this. And so it does take a little bit of trust in the beginning, because you don't know if it's correct. You don't know if it's wishful thinking. You don't know any of that. But then once it proves to be true, that gives it some merit. So then when it happens again, you might trust it again, and then you prove it to be true and it happens again. So for example, with mine, when I came out of the meditation, I told my husband, yes, you need to go to the doctors. This is what's wrong with you. When he actually did go to the doctors, they figured out what was wrong with him. It was what I had told him. So that gave me a little bit of a confirmation, even though it was brand new. And so what I would start to do is I would start to go in my meditation and I would ask them for answers. And then I would go ahead and try and verify that. So if I would say like, okay, if it's going to rain today, start practicing a little bit with, different things that I could, predict, if you will. And then if that came out correct, then I knew that that was right.
So you were testing it.
Yep, I was testing it. And then what she's going to realize is that sometimes things are not always black and white, right? So sometimes it's not always as clear cut. But then you start learning how being right or correct feels within you. And so some of those things are going to be, when it's something other than you or something that's correct, something that's more than just wishful thinking, is if it's usually quieter. It usually doesn't fight for attention. It usually doesn't make excuses up. It's not trying to, like I said, grab your attention. It's usually not loud. Usually when you're making something up or it's almost like, wishful thinking, if you will, it's usually louder. It tries to make excuses up. It's really emotional. It's attached to the outcome. And so when you're having these internal struggle and trying to figure out if this is truly, spiritual connection or if it's just you making things up, then a lot of the times what it is going to be figuring that out, because what it is your ego mind, is coming in and it's, talking. And usually people's ego mind is all about, being loud, preservation, outcomes. It's emotional. Our intuition, our inner knowing, that kind of thing is usually always, I kind of think of it as like Bob Marley or something. I kind of just like picture it in the back, like maybe just like this high on being like, hey, listen to me or not, like that's kind of how I picture it.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your own awakening process that compelled you towards embracing your psychic abilities?
I would have to say the biggest pivotal moment that happened for me was I was always drawn to it, but it was when I had my first reading. That would really have to be my first reading where she told me that I had this gift. And then I was like, what I do? And she's like, yeah, you can communicate with other people. And I was like, oh my God, like I can do this. Like, I just remember like she had given me that gift that day. And so that's when, and then I guess the next thing was when I was practicing in the psychic circle and I wouldn't get anything, it's like all these people are connected to people who passed on. And I would just be sitting there like, what? And then it all started with potato chips. I was sitting there during my development circle about a month in, and all of a sudden, it's like I was smelling potato chips. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, Heather, you really got to eat before you come here, and then finally I'm like, why would I start thinking about potato chips? Why would I be smelling them? I hate potato chips. Like I'm a sweet person. So I couldn't give a crap about potato chips. And that's when I finally spoke up and I was like, hey, the person that we're connecting to, did they love potato chips? And they're like, oh yes. They're like, they love potato chips, better made potato chips, which are made here in Michigan. And I was in Virginia at the time. So there's a lot of connection. And so then ended up being anytime that I connected to spirit, I would just get smells of food that they used to like. So I would be like, oh, the next time it happened was cinnamon buns or cinnamon rolls. And I was like, I'm smelling those. And they're like, oh my God, she made those every day. Not every day, every birthday. And her birthday is coming up here in a week. So that's really awesome that you caught that. So those were some of the pivotal times that are really standing out for me, is just those little baby things that happened.
That's really cool. Because, sense of smell is very strong. At least it is for me.
Oh my gosh, like I have no sense of smell at all. I lost my sense of smell probably over 15 to 20 years ago. And so now anytime that I smell, it's usually always paranormal. Like I've been in readings before. I did the psychic fair once and I remember thinking like, I'm getting hot dogs. And I remember like leaning over. It was so strong. I was like to my sitter, I'm like, do you smell hot dogs? And then she's like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And it ended up being, I was like, unless they liked hot dogs, did they really, really like baseball? Because I associate hot dogs and baseball. And she's like, oh yeah, he was a big, huge baseball lover. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's the reason why I'm smelling hot dogs.
In the beginning, you said something about being fearful. How did you overcome your paranormal fears and open up to your abilities?
Oh my goodness. Another great question. I love your questions because I think that a lot of people are wondering this question too. And I don't think I've ever been asked it. So the very biggest thing I've learned is learning. honestly learning, knowledge is freaking power, number one. And I was so incredibly scared of waking up to my gifts because we've all seen the movies, we've seen the movies, we've seen the TV shows, we've heard the Bible verses and everything else like that this is devil's work, this is horrible, there's demons, all these other things. So I was scared too, because I was like, man, if I open up to my gifts, then I'm opening up my whole life to all this bad stuff. And that's not the case at all. So the biggest thing that I learned too is spiritual boundaries, and then the spiritual laws, which say that we can say who and what spirits are allowed inside of our space at any given time. We have that power. We have that free will. So just knowing that, and then, protecting myself, saying those prayers, being like, hey, I only allow 100% love and light come into my space, really helped. And then also going down the journey, it's almost like when you first start off going down a path you've never been on, you might be really apprehensive. You might be scared because you don't know what's around every corner and that kind of thing. But then once you start walking around it, you start getting more comfortable and you're realizing, wow, why was I ever scared to begin with? And that's exactly what happened. And so it was so funny because I'm thinking back on some of the memories that this is bringing up to me now. And it's like, I remember having my first card deck when I got older and just being so scared of even using them, being like, oh my God, this is so taboo. This is like, oh, am I supposed to be using these? And now I have like over probably like 120 or 130 card decks.
Of course.
Yes.
I like what you said about spiritual boundaries. The first thing that popped in my head when you said that is I see a lot of people who have a welcome sign out in their front door. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to welcome everything into your home. To me, that part is taboo. I do not put a welcome sign on my front door. I have broomsticks.
Yes. It's so funny too, because I don't have a welcome sign either. But no, that is like 100% freaking perfect point to bring up, because we have boundaries with people in our physical life, right? So we, our parents, whoever, our kids, our friends and stuff like that. No, like don't come over my house at 11 o'clock at night, or 2 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that. They'd understand that. But we also have to have those kind of boundaries with the spiritual world as well, because, what we say goes, and our spirit guides and our past loved ones and our angels, they can't intervene without our permission. So we have to set our boundaries straight. So for example, I have those boundaries. And so, spirits know when they can come and can't come inside of my space or in my house. And one day I was going out for a walk and I came back and I was walking in my house and I could sense that there was multiple spirits in my house. There was probably at least 12 spirits in my house. I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. And I was mad. This is like coming home and having somebody throwing a party inside of your house, because I was like, whoa, why is this allowed? Like, why is this happening? And I don't know how to describe it to you, but I could just sense that they were in there. It's almost like knowing that people are inside of your house. Like you can sense that kind of, it's the exact same thing. It's just these people didn't have bodies. And as I was walking up to the house, I said to myself, I was like, why? Why are they here? And that's when I realized I was actually doing an online mediumship event that night. And it was the past loved ones of the people who were going to be there. They were just coming in early. They were making sure that they were there. And I was like, oh, that's why you're there.
Ooh, that gives me goosebumps. That's neat.
Yes.
Now, what experience do you have with dark and light magic?
Oh, yes. Yes. I love that we're talking about this too, because I got a stepfather when I was a teenager, well, maybe a little bit younger than a teenager, and he was into sorcery. And so what ended up happening was I got exposed, if you will, to black magic. My father at the time, my stepdad, he called it, magic. But now I look back on it, it was black magic. Okay. I grew up right north of 8 Mile. So everybody knows 8 Mile from the Eminem movie, right? So that's where I grew up. Okay. Right outside of Detroit. And so I am like basically, not in an area in which this was supposed to happen. My stepfather asked me to grab a box out of the garage. I grabbed this box, and as I'm bringing it into the kitchen, it's moving. There is something moving inside of this box, and it's freaking me out. And he was like, oh, Heather, open up the box, and I open up the box and out pops this freaking chicken. All right. And this live chicken is now running around my house. And I am like, okay, this is not something that you should be dealing with. Okay. I don't live out in the boondocks. I don't live out in the farm area. What's going on here? And he's like, this is an animal that we're going to sacrifice, tonight during one of our spells, because he had a love spell that he had to do with one of his clients, because my stepfather stepfather would make money on the side doing spells and that kind of thing. And so I got to learn very quickly the difference between black and white magic because, there is magic out there and there's bad and good in everything. There's bad and good with every single thing underneath the sun. And so I got to understand that. And even though I didn't understand, psychic and mediumship and abilities at that time, I got to learn that there is differences in your intention and in the tools that you use and when you are doing magic or you're opening up to your gifts and those kinds of things. So some people, they might go ahead and they might be like, oh, wait, the Ouija board is bad. But the Ouija board is not really bad. It's what people are using with it, So just like that chicken wasn't bad, but now going ahead and sacrificing the chicken to a demon, second of the devil, which my stepfather was doing, is not good, And so people only see that side of magic, in a lot of the TV shows and inside of Hollywood and inside the movie, like all those bad things, but they don't see the good side of it. And there's a big, giant good side that is basically bigger than the bad side. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I just don't understand how you would sacrifice the chicken for a love spell.
It's so nuts. I don't know all the intricacies of his spells, but I used to always try to do little spells, but I stuck with more of like the gypsy spells growing up and stuff like that. And because I remember one day being like, well, I want to branch out and do bigger spells, right? So right now I was just putting like a bay leaf in a letter to make the person love me. I was like using crystals and things like that. And so I wanted to do something bigger. And in this day, I came across a spell book and this spell could only be done on that day that I was reading the book. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. This is freaking tonight. And basically what it did, it was like, okay, you get all these kind of things together and you will be able to dream about your husband that night. And I remember being like, okay, perfect. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to dream about my future husband. This is going to be fun. And my stepfather came rushing in the room and he was like, don't do this spell. And I'm like, why not? He was like, because if you see your future husband and then you try to change the course of your life and you don't like him or whatever, then this could make it to where you're in love with him for the rest of your life and he's not. And he's never in love with you. And then you guys won't get married and all these other things. And I'm like, but does it say it in the book? And then he was like, yeah, they don't want you to know this. And that's when I started getting a little bit smarter, being like, okay, there is more to this. I don't need to be doing this anymore. And that's basically when because if you can't trust a book and everything that it says to do and not do, then I was like, you know what, I'm pretty much done. And so with that chicken and the love spell, as far as I know, it did not work. Because I remember that guy coming back and spending a lot of money with my stepfather, and I don't remember it ending happily. So maybe he didn't do the spell right? I don't know.
Maybe your stepfather just wanted more money and he intentionally didn't do it right.
Yes. Oh, I never thought about that. I wouldn't put it past him. But I did like it because it made my life a lot more colorful. And now I can understand the differences. So when I started opening up to my gifts this time, I could see that I was doing it completely different as opposed to where the black magic was, where I was, relying on other people's power, other people's, instructions, a whole bunch of like tools, animal sacrifices, that's not so good. Really bad intentions, versus what I'm doing now, which is spreading more love, obviously more light, raising more vibration, bringing power back to the person. I do use tools like, pendulums and tarot cards and stuff like that, but you don't have to. You have everything right there inside of you. And so that's kind of why I love that I had that experience with black magic, because now I know this little white magic, if you want to call it, is really good.
What do you wish everyone knew about psychic mediumship in the spiritual world?
First thing is, I wish that everybody believed that they had these gifts and that they trusted in them. Because it is something, like I think I said, that we all have this ability. And when you open up to this ability, it doesn't mean that now you got to become a psychic reader and do readings for people. You don't have to do that. You can go ahead and use the way that spirit communicates with you all throughout your day, so that you can make better decisions. You'll have less worry. Your anxiety will melt away. I freaking wrote a book called Anxiety to Angels because I was so ridden with anxiety all the time. And then it's like, okay, this is what I did to get rid of my anxiety. And basically what it is all about spiritual connection so that I can communicate with my angels. That is the biggest thing. And it's like, another big thing too is that you don't have to like take all this extra time out of your day to go ahead and open up to your abilities. You can literally do it all throughout your day. I don't really meditate that much anymore, but I'm always constantly talking with spirit all throughout my day. So this is like, praying all the time, practicing my intuition, and you can do little things like which way should I go to work today? Which way is the fastest? Is my Amazon package going to come today? Are my kids going to drive me up the wall? What color shirt is so-and-so going to wear? And then just keep on practicing which line at the bank is the shortest, all these kinds of things. And that's always keeping you in direct contact with your spiritual self. And then it's also increasing your intuition. You're going to increase your confidence, and you're also going to be able to trust yourself more and your higher power more.
I remember I was practicing a lot of building my intuition when I was in my 20s. And remember how we had we still have some malls, but the malls that all the stores are inside one building?
Yes.
I remember driving to the mall and being positive and saying, I'm going to get the closest parking spot to the door. And I always did.
Oh my God.
When I would say that, I'm going to get the closest parking spot to the door. And I wouldn't even have to drive around and circle for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I found it immediately. And so that gave me the proof that it works. Magic works.
Yes. And that's the thing is I call them parking lot angels. I use them all of the time. And so it's like literally like me and my husband, where were we? I forgot where we were. Oh, we were in Canada recently. And it was so funny because like this downtown area, we had a show and we had to like get there and there was no parking or whatever like that. And then as soon as I realized that it's going to be a problem finding a parking spot, I said to him, I'm like, oh, get the parking lot angels. I'm like, damn it. Because if you can give the parking lot angels like a little bit of a heads up before you get there, kind of like what you did, that's going to allow them a little bit of time to be able to work out some things, But I asked them at the last minute. And I swear to God, it wasn't even like 90 seconds after I asked them, we go down one more block and someone's pulling out. And I don't know what we would have done if we haven't gotten that parking spot. But I play this game when I go to the gym every day, and I'm going to take your advice that you're giving us right now and say, hey, this is what's going to happen, instead of hoping or whatever, like saying this is. Because what I do is when I go to the gym, as I'm pulling into the parking lot, I can't see where like the closest parking spots are. So I'll use my intuition, I'll ask spirit. I'm like, okay, is this the lane where I'm going to get the closest spot? Or is it this lane or this lane? And it might kind of seem like counterintuitive, like Heather, you're in the gym, like you should park further away. But it's a game that I like to play because I like to see if it works. And so far, like every single time it's been bang on. Even this morning, as I'm going down, they're like, yep, go down this way. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I don't think it's going to be there. And they're like, just trust us. And then like someone pulled out and then I'm like, oh my God. Or it's like, no, there really was a spot. So I think that is perfect. Like that is like one of the first things that you can do is practice getting parking spots.
I like how you say they are telling you this. And that's exactly how I talk to myself. Ooh, they just told me I need to do this. I always refer to them as they. Yep, they're telling me. And, people who don't believe in this whole woo-woo stuff, when I start talking about, well, they told me this, it's like, okay, so how do you know? Like, just wait.
Yes. And I always say they too, because it's like, it's all one, like one consciousness, whatever, so it's me, it's, spirit, like, it's all the angels, like as a collective. So that's why I start calling them they, because I think you might have done this too, but in the beginning of your spiritual journey, you're always wanting to know exactly who's talking to you, your spirit guide's name, what is he here for, your other spirit guide, okay, your angel and stuff like that. And then after a while, I've done so many meditations, meeting all of my guides and everything else. I'm just like, okay, I can't even handle this anymore. You guys are all just part of one anymore.
And you know what? It really doesn't matter who they are.
Yes, doesn't it? Yes, it doesn't. It doesn't. As long as it's higher source, vibration, connection, you're good,
You said that you teach people how to develop their psychic abilities. What do you offer?
Yes, I love this so much because I am that psychic medium that is trying to drive herself out of business, because it's like, you can come to me for a reading and I totally understand that because people, sometimes you need to hear from somebody else. I totally get that, like you want that confirmation, that validation. I got that. But the thing is that when I first had my mediumship experience, when someone connected to my grandmother, I remember feeling I didn't want to leave that person. I wanted to stay with that person, follow them around because they could connect to my grandma. And my grandma meant everything in the world to me. And I remember thinking like, it was almost like prying me away from him. Like he could just be sitting there eating dinner. Like, I don't care what he did. I just wanted to be with him because he could connect to my grandma. And I don't want people feeling that way with me because I know now my grandma wasn't staying with him. My grandma was coming home with me. And so whether or not that I could see her, hear her, or feel her, she was coming home with me. So that's what I want to do with other people. And so what I I offer a lot of stuff. So the very first thing is my Rise into Your Power group on Facebook, which is free, and so we have a great community there where I'm doing exercises and all those kinds of things. So if you're just starting off, that would be a great place to start. I also offer the academy. So it's my Spiritual AF Academy. So this academy is for people who are like, yes, like I definitely am being called to do more. I'm definitely called to really have the support. I want to feel guided. I want to feel loved. I want to have that connection with my higher power and source. And it doesn't necessarily, like I said, mean that you have to become a psychic medium, but it's going, to do readings, but it's going to help you open up to your abilities. And so inside of the academy, I have tons of resources. So you can learn all about how to connect psychic, mediumship, intuitive. We even have things on past lives, zodiac signs, like get all of that out because all of us are all interested in all of it. And then I have a guest speaker that comes once a month and we talk about different topics. Like for this month, we're doing past lives, but we've had, higher heart connections and moonology people come in. And then, of course, we have the community, which is part of the academy, which is probably the most important part. And so even if people decide to, hang out with me or whatever it is, they need to find a community. That is number one thing, is that you don't have to go down the spiritual circle, alone. Most of us were born into families and friends who don't get us. We're the black sheep of the family. We also sometimes have had a lot of traumas and stuff like that. And the reason being is because you have a bright light inside of you. And God did not put light people amongst other light people. He had to put the light people in where the darkness is at. And so you have to find the other light people in your life, and so you definitely need to do that. I think that's like the number one thing that any person going down a spiritual path has to do is you got to get some spiritual besties, some people that get you.
Oh, yeah. We can't do this alone.
Don't you feel that way? Like, did you grow up feeling like a misfit or anything?
I just knew I was a little different. It wasn't until, probably when I'm in my mid-teens. But it wasn't other people my age. It was older people, like the tarot readers, like, wow, she's so fascinating. I mean, I was drawn to that. But at that time, I didn't have the belief that I could do that.
Yep.
But we all can do that.
Yes. And for me, like it was because I was always known as a crybaby. I was always known as the one that was too sensitive and that kind of thing. And it's because I was such a strong empath. I was very, 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 very sensitive. And now it's like I realize that being sensitive is a good thing because that helps me communicate better with the spiritual side because I'm so sensitive.
When you're referring to your family, you were the black sheep of the family. You were kind of alone. So how did you find your comfort? How did you find your community?
I didn't find my community until I was older. When I was younger, I have 7 brothers and sisters. So I definitely wasn't alone, but always felt alone, like always different. Nobody got me. Nobody understood me. I was completely different and I still am to this day. So I am definitely the weirdest person out of my family. Most of my family are religious. A lot of them are against a lot what I do, but they're becoming a little bit more open-minded about it. So that's good. When our mom passed away, well, she got sick for a couple weeks before she passed away. And that's when they all started coming to me, right? Being like, oh, what's going to happen? And I'm like, oh, wait, I thought that this was like bad things.
Oh, and then you were the expert all of a sudden.
Exactly. So I don't think that I ever found my community when I was growing up. Now I think because, the spiritual world is bigger now, like there is definitely now there's Facebook and all those things. So, if you have like a teenager or a child that is, sensitive, is an empath and things like that, I would definitely try to get them into one of those communities. And there's tons of things online now too. So you're not even just, bound by your, physical location. But I didn't find my community until I found that psychic development circle. And you know what? I just remember one time we went out after circle to like this restaurant and we had lunch. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I am sitting with psychic mediums. Like I am on the cool table now. Like this felt like I was... Yes, like, like the popular kids in like freaking high school, that's what I felt like. And I just remember like being at this table and like looking at people around me, like they have no idea that I'm sitting with psychic mediums right now. Like, oh my God.
That is so cute.
Dude, and I remember, I still love them. And that's what ended up happening. So here's another thing too, just in case, anybody's like, Heather, there's no community around. When I moved back, I left my community because my community was in Virginia. And so I came back here. I was so sad. I'm like, I don't have this community. So you know what I did? I created one.
Oh,
Yes. I actually found my community through meetup.com. And then I created a meetup group, in my area because I am like, and I still have it. It's called the Michigan Psychic and Mediumship Development Group. But that's a good way to find a group near you or to create your own. And that's what I freaking did. I just created my own because I'm like, I need spiritual people. I need someone that I can talk to about this. I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. And this is before COVID too. So this is like a time when we really had a lot of that one-on-one interaction. And there wasn't like, I don't think Zoom was a thing. We just had Skype. And so
right.
we didn't
FaceTime.
Yes, exactly. And so that is how I found my community. And I still think it's huge. It will always be everything to me because it's like your family. And you know what? So many of us too have had past lives together. I can just feel it. And I cannot wait until we cross over to the other side. And I'm going to be like, dude, we rocked this together and we did this together in this lifetime. I can't wait to, catch up with everybody.
Right. And hopefully you'll discover all that before you pass over.
Yes. That would be awesome. Yes.
I used to live in Detroit and I remember I was in high school, right? My father's from Detroit and when he joined the military, he left. But I lived in Detroit with my grandparents when my parents went to Korea. Do you know where Denby High School is?
No, but I'm going to find out.
That's where I went. I went to Denby High School. And I remember it seemed like there was a church around every corner. It was either Protestant or Catholic.
Yep. My husband grew up Catholic. He went to the school with the nuns. Yep. They are all over the place. But there's also spiritual churches that a lot of people don't know about. And so you have to look those up. But spiritual churches, the way that I describe it is it's very similar to a regular church, but they believe in mediumship. And they believe that you can talk to other people on the other side. So it's definitely structured like church, except for at the end, they do a mediumship gallery reading where they bring in people from the other side. And I love that. So they have them even in this area too. So check and see if you have a spiritual church near you.
Oh, I have not heard of that. I need to look into it.
Yes.
Or maybe I should start my own.
Yes, there you go. Yes, exactly. And I love it too because it's really, really uplifting. The people are always great there. And I remember leaving early one day and someone stopped me and she was like, your grandmother is here. And she told me to give you a message. And I forgot the message, but it was something along the lines of like, you just shine your light. You keep on doing it, And I'm like, okay, Grams. And I absolutely love that. So if you love the structure of church or you feel called in some areas like that, it's kind of like a blend of both. But yeah, the spiritualists are a little bit different than typical psychic mediums. They have a lot of their own philosophies and rules, but it's just basically the same.
When you say spiritual church, is it actually a dwelling that's a church?
Yeah, it looks, usually most of them all look like regular churches. They might look a little bit smaller, but they look like churches. Yep. And it's a dwelling. Yep.
Oh, I'm going to do my research.
If you're really interested in spiritualism, there's also a couple of camps in the U.S., Lilydale, which is a spiritualist camp too, and they just do mediumship like all the time there. So if you're going to go there, they do mediumship and talking to the other side for free all throughout the day. And that's where the spiritualists live. And then they also have Camp Casadega, which is their sister camp down in Florida, kind of out on the outskirts of Daytona. And that was really amazing. Our community in the Spiritual AF Academy, we actually met down in Florida and went to Camp Casadega. And so we got to do seances together and everything else. So it was really great that even though we have this online community, I do try to get our academy together at least once or twice a year. And so we were able to have a little road trip and we met in Camp Casadega and we had a great time down there, learning all about the spiritual side.
Tell us more about your academy.
It used to be known as a Coffee and Cards Club because I do free readings every Sunday on my Facebook page and Instagram. And I was like, okay, everybody is wanting more of this. And so that's the reason why I created it. So my academy has, like I talked about, all of the juicy goodness of the zodiac and, oracle cards, how to do oracle card readings, everything like that, mediumship. And then we get together 4 times a month. So we actually have 2 online circles a month where that's where you practice your psychic and mediumship skills. I usually start off by an intuition one and then psychic and mediumship. And so many people, they're like, Heather, I can't do it. And next thing you know, a couple weeks later, they're ruling the roost in the circle. We have the guest teacher come on every month, and we also have office hours. So office hours is where we get together. You can ask any questions, or you can also get your questions answered, a little bit of one-on-one time sometimes as well. Or sometimes we just sit there and talk, because sometimes we just have so many stories to share and so many things to get off of our chest. And that is so important, because you need to be able to vent and have someone to talk to on your spiritual journey.
You also have a podcast.
Oh, I do. It's called a Spiritual AF Life. I created that because we need practical, down to earth spiritual stuff. It's not all woohoo, And so that's the reason why I created the podcast, is so that we could try and get things down to earth in practical, easy ways, easy to digest ways, because sometimes, you can go really off the deep end of spirituality, which I absolutely love. But I'm like, we need to make this real. We need to bring it down to earth so that we can, really understand it in little bite-sized ways every day.
What's your favorite episode?
Oh, that is tough. Okay, so first off, anytime my husband is on.
So you got him on your podcast?
I did.
Oh, you lucky girl.
He's been on it twice now, once a couple years ago and then once just recently. And the reason being is because he's so funny. And one of his last episodes, and I really do encourage everybody to listen to it because it's super freaking funny. His outlook on spirituality and like spirits are so different. So he starts talking about a ghost that he's seen when he was younger. And then we start getting on to like, what was the ghost wearing? And then ghost pants and stuff like that. And then he's talking about the fashions of ghosts and then like how like what soon we're going to be haunted by like 1980s ghosts wearing like leg warmers and like I'm like, yeah, what about the disco freaking ghosts? So it's so incredibly funny seeing like somebody's point of view that is kind of like on the outskirts of the spiritual side and like looking in. So it's really cool to get his take, and it always makes me laugh.
That is a neat perspective.
Isn't it? It was like so much funny. And he's like, I did not sit there and get a fashion advice from this ghost. Okay. He was like, it scared the crap out of me. I was gone. But it was like, I don't know. It's just so funny. And I thought so very unique perspective.
How can everybody find you on social media? I'm going to put all the links in the episode notes, but just tell us so we can hear it.
Oh, definitely. Well, I hang out most of the time on Facebook. So Heather Danielle, Psychic Medium. If you want me on Instagram, I'm Spiritual AF Heather Danielle.
AF.
Yeah, AF. I love that. It's just like a little bit of spice, not too much.
That sounds like a t-shirt. Spiritual AF.
Yes. It means as an F in the bad word, just in case anybody's wondering. The bad word. Yeah. Some people ask me, they're like, what is
as fudge?
And I'm like, yeah, as fudge. Yes, exactly. Just a little bit.
Can you offer a takeaway for the audience today?
Yes. I'm just going to tune in really quick to see exactly like what we had talked about. What is the biggest thing for them to take away? And here's what's coming up is you can believe in magic. You can believe in your stuff. You can believe in coincidences. And if you keep on believing and trusting that it is more than just a coincidence, the more that it's going to happen for you, because the spiritual realm is going to be like, they get it. They get it. Okay, let's keep on doing more of it. If we keep on discounting signs and coincidences as nothing, then we're not going to get anywhere. It does not hurt to believe in it. But if you keep on believing in it, then it's going to get stronger and better. Okay, there's a whole bunch of awesomeness waiting on the other side if you just believe and distrust. Just keep on going down that path. Believe and trust that they are signs from your past loved ones. Trust that they're signs from your spirit guides. Trust. And then you're going to see the magic.
That's right. Trust them.
Yes, it's awesome.
Thank you, Heather, for being on my show. It's been wonderful having you. You're so cheerful.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such an amazing conversation. And then, yes, anybody's welcome to keep in touch with me. But I just want to say it's been an honor talking with you. And I had so much fun.
You're so lovely. And I think it's because you're a redhead like me.
Yes, us redheads got to stick together.
Yeah. We're the most spiritual people. Did you know that?
Oh, that makes sense.
So I've been told.
Hey, I definitely would never go against a redhead saying that.
Thank you for joining us for Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon. Have a burning question or have a topic you'd love Theodora and her guests to discuss on the show? Contact her through Instagram at Theodora Pendragon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And help us spread the word by leaving us a rating and review and sharing it with your friends. See you next time, and may your magic always shine.